So, you want to play Cyberdarks? Do you like big giant robot dragons? How about those very same dragons wielding slightly smaller dragons as if they're a makeshift AR-15? How about machines posing as dragons? Nice try, Cyberdark Claw, but you're not fooling anyone. Have you ever wanted to play a Cyber Dragon deck, but thought that Cyber Dragon was a bit of a poser, especially after he got big in the meta and his career really began to take off? Well, my friend, I have the deck for you. A bit of history about the Cyberdarks. They started out as a branch to the original Cyber Dragon deck while having absolutely nothing to do with them. Released in 2006, their gimmick was to use very small dragons as equip spells, turn them into 2k6, and whack your opponent with them, and apply various other effects along the way. At least, that would be the case if you only watch the anime. In reality, they were a barely functional archetype that needed 3 decks worth of graveyard setup and 500 cards in hand in order for them to be viable at best. And if they had absolutely none of that completely reasonable amount of setup, they only had one final option: bend over and ask the opponent to be gentle. But 2006 was a long time ago. Fast forward to 2017. After they finally came to terms with their place in the universe, they got some pretty okay support, to say at least. Primarily in the form of self-discarding searchers that double up as ammo for the equip effects of the Cyberdark monsters, while also giving them battle effects that aren't totally fucking garbage. 300 extra damage? Huh, at last. An effect that means I can finally take out 3 copies of Sparks that I run in each of my decks. I joke, but this one was probably one of the better effects of the bunch. But, much to our disappointment, this wasn't enough for the Archetype. So, they hit the gym, and now, after 4 more years, they finally made a comeback. And now they won't stop doing this thing where they're flexing at themselves in the mirror, mouthing the words, "Nice cock, bro." This is where the structure deck comes in, as well as an actual segue into how to play the fucking things. Gameplay. They're a machine dragon deck that focuses around equipping cards onto them, while also trying to circumvent the weird outdated card text from Cyberdark Horn, Edge, and Keel. All the Cyberdark card effects vary in strength, from stealing dragons from your opponent's grave, to being an equip card that lets you Foolish Burial on attack, from an Omni Negate to hitting like a truck. Lots of trucks. In quick succession. Alternatively, you could just have a 2300 attack point Cyberdark Horn, equipped with a twin-headed behemoth, and win through piercing damage. Like the good old days. So, what's the deck build? Well, let me tell you. If you have 3 copies of this deck, you now have every card you'd ever need for a cut and dry, pure Cyberdark deck, as well as 3 copies of the best trap card in the game. That isn't magic cylinders, of course. However, it is missing a couple of extra deck monsters, as well as a few spicy tech cards, but the deck given to you is plenty enough to make a viable build. So, let's run over the basic overview of what cards you're playing, why you're playing them, and all while I'm trying to justify my crappy ratios and deck techs. Copy at your own risk. Monster cards. First up, the Edgy Boys. Despite the whole deck's artwork makes it look like everything is catered towards the 3 main trio Cyberdarks, you'll only run 1 of each, just for the sake of their names, because it means you have more Cyberdarks for a monster I'll get onto soon enough, but otherwise you won't ever use them for their effects, because they're bad. Next up, our new member of the Cyber Club, Cyberdark Chimera. There's nothing about this card we don't make a use out of. The primary use for this card is for the Powerbomb search, because it's the best Powerbomb search card we have. As far as I'm concerned, it's the only one in the game. Not only does it search Powerbomb, but it also makes doing hefty fusion summons even more manageable, allowing you to fusion summon with the monsters in your graveyard. Yes, it locks you into summoning cyber monsters, and Powerbomb by proxy locks you into fusion summoning a machine monster. But Cyberdark Chimera doesn't lock into summoning Cyberdarks, so you can summon any machine cyber monster. Cyber N, Cyber Eternity, Chimera Tech, you name it. But if you're a true gamer, you know the real use of this card is to turbo out Cyber Ogre 2. And you know deep down I'm not joking. It's only a matter of time before Konami starts to support the ogres. This deck really has layers, man. Not only that, but when you bin this card to the graveyard from anywhere, it searches a Cyberdark monster, which makes this card pretty diverse, since you can Foolish Burial this card into graveyard setup and a rotor for your Cyberdarks. That's pretty good. As much praise as I give it, 2 is enough, because the search restrictions on it can make it a bit awkward to use. I have 3 Cyberdark cannons. Some argue 2. I argue it searches all your monsters. Sorry, on further reflection, it searches 1 monster or a brick. But it does make it easier for you to fetch your Chimera, and that's always a plus. And if you ever want to take a trip down memory lane and pretend like it's 2006 again, you can always use it as an equip card for the trio, since it is a dragon type. But that's not all. It also gives the equipped monster the effect to Foolish Burial when it fights. Remember when I mentioned you can get a search with Chimera when it's sent from the deck to the graveyard? Claw, 3 of, cause it does the exact same shit as Cannon, but better. Bin it from your hand to the grave, search a Cyberdark, spell a trap. Now, spoiler alert for the spell and traps, but your go-to card is a card that either searches more Cyberdarks, or gives you an apocalyptic amount of setup. And, should you choose to play the long game, and use it as an equip card for the trio, you can send a monster from your extra deck to the grave. This effect is weirdly helpful, since you can send a Dragon Master Knight for your Cyberdark Dragon, or any other monster that floats into removal or advantage. You get the gist. And I think you can conjure your own spicy ideas. Mine is to send Predapant Chimera Felicia and float it into Super Poly. Proceed to dab on my opponent as I turn their Drytons into a fucking bike with googly eyes. Why pair Psychroid? Why not a good machine? Because it was never about gaining advantage or power. It's about getting inside your opponent's head, winding them up, breaking them from the inside out. Make your opponent their own worst enemy in order to facilitate your future victories. Make them question what the fuck just happened and how they lost to it as they begin to doubt their own skills in this game. It's also very funny. We don't use Verse Anaconda here. We duel like men. Now, at this point, I would cover the rest of the monsters, but it makes more sense to cover some of the spell and traps. So I will. Some spells. Cyberdark Realm searches your Cyberdark monsters on activation, lets you normal summon a second time, and then, when you would equip a monster from your grave to a Cyberdark, you can borrow one of your opponents instead. This is never helpful, unless you're playing the mirror match. No less than 3, however. And now, for the most explosive of all the support, Cybernetic Horizon. Buckle up, this effect is a mile long, and we're in for the long ride. Send 2 dragon and or machine monsters with different attributes, one of each from your hand and one from your deck, to the grave. Then, add 1 machine or dragon cyber monster from your deck to your hand. Then, send 1 machine cyber monster from your extra deck to the graveyard. From here, you're locked into summoning machine monsters from your extra deck for the turn. But remember when I said Chimera has a search effect when it's been to the graveyard? Gets you a lot of cards, right? Well, it can get you more. Stay tuned to find out. I run 2. 3 gets a bit too bricky, and it's so searchable. Or, at least it's searchable in a huge chain of searches for searching for more cards. The searchers of this deck can search for the cards that can search for the spells that will eventually search this card, which then searches more monsters, and then packs your graveyard tighter than the Paris Catacombs. So, now we cover the Cyberdarks, now moving on to everything else. 1 Cyber Dragon, so that he knows who the real king of this deck is. 1 hurts, because when it's sent to the graveyard, it searches for a Cyber Dragon exactly like how Cyberdark Chimera works. And sometimes I just want to cuck the Cyber Dragon into never making it be played, but it's just sitting in my hand as its ugly cousins are doing it. It's a fucking piece of cardboard. Why am I even caring about this? Remember when I said you can get even more advantage with Horizon? Foreshadowing. Nakhaster, cause it can recover Chimera or the dead weight of the deck, and 3 core because it searches even more. This is a friendly reminder that Cyberdark cards are still Cyber cards. And you don't have to worry about wasting a normal summon on this card either, as the extra normal summon from Realm means you can normal this card and Chimera all in one turn. Plus, if you desperately need a spell card to bin for the Power Bond search, then at least Core can supply you with something in order to do that. Dragon Buster Destruction Sword is also a monster that's a dragon and has an equip effect that's very good. From here, it's all utility spells and traps. Use your own discretion, but for the sake of the video being somewhat coherent, let's just stick to what's in the structure deck. Already, the layout of this video is getting pretty schizophrenic. Just to reiterate, 3 Cyberdark Realm, 2 Cyberdark Horizon. As for the cards we haven't mentioned yet, 3 Emergency Cyber. Because if our search train wasn't ridiculous enough, we now have Search for Core that searches a search that will search for even more searches that will give us more search and setup. I personally think we need more searches just to be sure that we have enough. 2 Power Bonds. It's a nice card, it's searchable, and it's one of the fusion cards we use. 3 is also acceptable, but I like 2 because I needed room for a certain spicy card. Overload Fusion is excellent. You know what it does, you know why it's a staple. We almost exclusively run Dark Machine monsters, and we want to pile up the grave. 2 or 3 at your own discretion. I'm using 2 right now because I'm still trying to find a use for another fusion card. Yeah, this thing's in the structure deck, and most people seem to want to have at least one, and I don't know why. Cyberdarks don't really banish enough to justify using it. At least, I've never banished enough cards to justify using it myself, and if I ever were to use it, I would just bin it for Chimera to search for Power Bond and do a graveyard fusion. Yes, throwing away a fusion card just to search for another fusion card, that irony is not wasting on me. I can imagine that this is good for a regular Cyber Dragon deck, but this ain't it, champ. This is their tall, dark and handsome younger brother. It probably has come in clutch for at least one person in the world. Maybe it was even you watching this right now. But I just don't get it. What I do get, however, is Cyberdark Impact. Just one is fine. Yes, it only summons Cyberdark Dragon, which sucks, but it can recycle Horn, Edge and Keel for more binning and more searching. And it graveyard fuses, which is never a bad thing. You may be asking yourself right now, are there better alternatives for this card? Yes, but that won't stop me from flexing on my opponent with a 6k plus attack point Cyberdark Dragon, and it's not the worst plan B. Cyberdark Invasion 2 is a good number. It lets you interrupt your opponent's plays and gives your Cyberdarks more equips. And if you had a certain balanced little dragon in your graveyard when you played this card, you can lock your opponent out of the extra deck for fucking ages. The amount of times this card has tested my ability to resource manage while only allowing myself to use one of these effects has actually stressed me out to the point where I'm now on heart medication. I thoroughly recommend this card for any newer players to the game to give you a mad crash course in how to get a lot of mileage out of not that many card effects. And I love cards that offer that. This fucking game will land me in hospital one day, mark my words. 1 Inferno works nicely for protection, and if your opponent decides to use a Feather Duster, the collateral damage searches you a fusion or polymerization spell. That's very nice. And in this day and age, precision spell and trap removal is slowly becoming a thing of the past. So, why not try punish your opponent by trying to get rid of your equips with searching a super poly and bringing out a certain googly-eyed cycle boy. Cyber Eternal is a nice recovery for your fusions. However, you can't cheese out monsters that it's sent with Cybernetic Horizon. Sorry, you can't cheese out the Cyber End, you can't cheese out the Cyber Dark End. You just gotta summon them out the hard way. But 2 is still pretty nice. It's a sneaky recovery, it's a quick play spell, and it's a shield for your fragile monsters. Because a quick play Monster Reborn wasn't good enough, they had to give it graveyard protection on top of that. Is it clear that I actually really like this card? 3 Imperm. That's it. No joke. No insight. Run 3 Imperm. Extra deck. It's pretty cut and dry, and if you fuck this up with 3 copies of the structure deck, you've got bigger problems than being a bad Yu-Gi-Oh player. I recommend you should probably see a doctor and check for brain damage or genetic signs of inbreeding. But short answer, just throw them all in the deck. If you want to upgrade though, these are my suggestions. Cyberdark End Dragon. It's big, it hits hard, it has the capacity to hit a lot, and it can remove cards from your opponent's graveyard, as well as being near immortal, with some exceptions. You only need one, because you only have the capacity to summon one. It takes a lot of effort to get onto the field. So, forget trying to recycle your entire graveyard and then going through all that again to get a second one out. One's fine, you just need to summon it once, and then search out Cyber Eternal. And don't you go fucking complaining about not having access to Cyber Eternal. I know you've got lots. Cyber Darkness Dragons. Remember in the video where I told you we only run the main trio just for the sake of their names? Yeah, well, me neither, but this is me telling you it now. And this right here is the reason we run those guys. Cyber Darkness and Dark End is what it's all been building up to. This mess of spikes can have a lot of attack, even with the weakest dragon in the deck equipped to it. And if you summon it with Power Bond, it can reach as high as 9k attack in certain scenarios. You can tell from the amount of pointy bits on its body that it has a lot of attack. Worst case scenario, you can have a 36 hundo with a Foolish Burial effect and attack, and draw and destruction. It's also your gateway into summoning Cyber Dark End. After all, it's a level 10 Cyberdark fusion monster that can equip Cyber End Dragon to it. Oh yeah, it can also Omni-Negate. Oh, neat. Oh, wait, but in order to do that, you've got to sacrifice the attack gained it got from what's equipped onto it. I would call it a beat stick, but it's more akin to a baseball bat covered in razor blades with a stick of dynamite built into it. Unless you've got a spare lying around or you have something hanging around to fix it, you might not be using it for very long. That's why we have Invasion in the deck. It fixes Darkness Dragon. And much like Dark End, it's a bit of an effort to get out, so you probably only need one, but you can find yourself optimistically running two. A Cyber Dark Dragon. I don't have a real justification for this, but here I am running it anyway. You're just going to have to trust me on this one. Cyber End Dragon. But keep in mind, the only real use for getting out of this thing is to send it to the graveyard and set up your Dark End or your Darkness Dragon. However, it's not impossible to summon. Hertz, Core, and Nashter all count as being a Cyber Dragon on your field and in your graveyard. And you're definitely going to be summoning a Core, binning Hertz with Horizon, and then getting the OG Cyber Dragon off of Hertz. The pieces are there, it's just up to you how you're going to put them in place. And the same method to summon Cyber End also applies to summoning Cyber Twin Dragon and Cyber Eternity. But why would you want to do any of that? Chimeritic Fortress Dragon is an option, but you might as well just run Seeger at that point. Chimeritic Mega Fleet is funny as hell. As of the making of this video, access code costs about £50, but Mega Fleeting away is priceless. Rampage Dragon is what you're going to be using as back row removal, as well as another chunky body on board. And finally, Chimeritic Overdragon. Words really escape me with this guy, but I'm talking about it right now. I'm just looking at the script realizing that's fucking stupid, and I'm saying it out loud for everyone else to hear. Fuck it, I can't be bothered to start over again. Anyway, back on topic. If your opponent has no answer to what is essentially Cyber Dragon Star Platinum, and their board is filled with furries, femboys, or e-girls, let this be a friendly reminder to why cards like this are the true timeless kings of the game. I am very biased though, and if your opponent ain't dying in the first hit, don't worry, this guy right here has enough attacks in him to clear a Magic the Gathering player's board. Extra additions in your deck. Every monster in your deck is a dark attribute machine type. That means you have a lot of support, as well as the odd card dotted here and there that fit the Cyber Dragon playstyle. For example, Instant Fusion helps you summon Infinity, but just remember, if you do summon that absolute fucker, you are dead to me. Fusion deployment isn't bad either if you find yourself in need of more access to the Cyber Dark trio, for whatever reason that may be, or maybe Cyber Dragon, but let's be real, you're not going to summon Cyber Dragon, come on. Stop fooling yourself. Stop fooling me. Don't do it. If you need more draw cards, Allure is a good bet. Foolish Burial or Extra Foolish Burial if you find that Claw and Cannon are a bit too slow. Limiter removal is funny. And the virus cards. Mate, any excuse I can find to play the virus cards, I'll absolutely take it. Because they are better than what you would expect. they are worth evaluating what your opponent does and to see if these cards counter that playstyle or not. The cards I'm referring to, of course, being Deck Devastator Virus, Eradicator Epidemic, and maybe Grinning Grave? Probably, maybe. Someone out there's going to find a use for it, I guarantee it. Dark Sacrifice is also a spicy tech, but granted, these Navirus cards were more suited for a control variant of this deck. But we'll save that for another time, when I can actually work out how to do a control variant of this deck. And from there, it's just the everything else cards, Duster, Regeki, Hand Traps, blah blah blah. Basically, run whatever makes you happy. That is the goal at the end of the day. It is to have fun. Summary. Honestly though, there are other machine decks that do what this do, but better. A lot better actually. That being said, it's conveniently wrapped in 3 structure decks that will only set you back about $30. But the look on your friend's face when you remind them that they lost to Cyberdarks? That is priceless. It's a fun deck, and it does fun things. Granted, the combos get very long-winded, but if you like to handle your own cards, I don't think that'll be much of a problem. It's very anime, and flashy as fuck, and if you're sick to death of the normal Cyber Dragon builds, much like myself, then this is the one for you. And even if you bought the deck as the cheapest alternative to pick up 3 copies of Infinite Imperm, I strongly recommend you give the rest of the deck a try. Now that we've reached the end of the video, I feel like I need to give this deck an arbitrary yet biased score of some sort to cement how good or bad it is. So, I give it a times I played a search card in 1 turn out of 10. Take care everyone, good luck, and have fun.